Hi, and welcome to the Long Range Shooting and Custom Rifle Building podcast presented by Wolf Precision Incorporated, where we learn about and share long range shooting and custom rifle building. I am your host, Jamie Dotson, and welcome to the show. Hi, and welcome to Wolf Precision's Long Range Shooting and Custom Rifle Building podcast. I'm your host, Jamie Dotson, and welcome to the show. In this episode, we're going to be talking about a chamber. Is it a verb or is it a noun? And also we want to talk and touch base on the new and upcoming classes for 2024, as well as some of the options that we're going to open up for some people to come and enjoy the class with somebody. So consider it like an observer. So lots of new things coming online for 2024. Really excited for the year, as well as getting ready to work on our new processes here and just getting back from Akuma for some training and classes in North Carolina. So just a really great week altogether. A little bit delay getting this podcast out. But so in this one, it's really important. We're going to talk about the chambering. Is it a verb or is it a noun? So without further ado, here we go. All right, I do want to say a quick thank you to TriggerTech. TriggerTech is the maker of fine rifle triggers. We put them in all of our custom rifles here. We recommend them to all of our customers as well. You can log on to TriggerTech. They offer 3 different models from 2-stage, single stage, the primary, which is one of my favorite working triggers, to the special, to the diamond. Lots of different shoes you can choose from now. So just really a good choice the whole way around. So if you want to upgrade your rifle and you want to do it with your trigger, you can stop over to triggertech.com. That's triggertech.com today. We'd also like to thank MDT. MDT is a maker of fine rifle chassis with lots of great options to choose from the J. Allen, which they re-released in 2023, to the Oryx, which we think is one of the most unsung heroes on the market today. So if you want to upgrade your rifle and you want to do it with a stock, we really recommend stopping over to mdttac.com. That's mdttac.com today. When you go into a rifle store, right, and you look at all the different components on the wall and you say, okay, and you walk up to the clerk and you say something like this, so I'd like to buy a rifle chamber. You're probably going to get a really long and weird pause just like that, right? So you can buy a barrel, you can buy stock, you can buy a trigger, you can buy scope, you can buy rings, you can buy reticles for in your scope. These are tangible objects. These are parts of a working rifle. But you can't buy a chamber. Chamber has always been, up until this point, a verb. It's a process. It's not a noun. You can buy a barrel or you can buy a pre-chambered barrel as a service. But if you walk into a gun store and you say, hey, I would like to buy a rifle chamber, and they're going to like, oh, you want a chamber job? No, I'd like to buy a chamber. Well, you can't buy that. And that's right. So one of the things that's sort of funny about the modern working rifle is every working part and piece of the rifle is actually a standalone component or a piece. So if you think about the rifle stock, right? You can buy a rifle stock. You can buy triggers. You can buy... All these things are working parts and pieces of the rifle or components. The last missing piece to make a rifle a true component-based system is the actual chamber itself. The one thing that separates customers from gunsmiths or the services that they provide is the fact that you cannot chamber a barrel. You can buy a pre-chambered barrel. You can buy a barrel blank and have it chambered, but you cannot buy a chamber, right? On top of that, it is a service. So when you purchase it and you install it or have it cut into your barrel as a service, when that barrel shot out, it's now gets thrown away. It's part of the barrel. It's not a standalone entity. And I think what we're really excited about when we started working on the ACE system, and one of the first conversations that we had was the fact that our end game or our end goal is to truly break the rifle down into working components. And the last missing piece was the chamber or the ACE system, or having the chamber now be a noun rather than a verb, having it being part of a rifle, a standalone entity, and therefore allowing customers now to purchase the component rather than the service. And what that does to the modern bolt action rifle, at least in my mind, and then we'll talk about AR-15s here in the future, is it now removes that last missing piece that the customers themselves cannot do and puts it back into the customer's hands as a over-the-counter component part of the rifle. That makes sense in a lot of different ways. For me, it makes sense is that we can make a better chamber by making it separate of the barrel. We got better control of the tolerances. We have access to the chamber from both sides. We can actually make a true perfect chamber, at least as humanly possible anyway. Then the only thing we cut into barrel is the throat and the straightest portion. And this is why, when we talk about having that repeatable accuracy, that super high level of accuracy, but repeatable, is so critical. So, for example, I was listening to a podcast just recently, and they have lots of them, I think 300 some podcasts, and they were interviewing a newer style bolt action rifle that had been released to the market for the hunting world. And without throwing out any names, they have a lockup system of how they lock the barrel into the receiver. But in the interview of the podcast, they had talked about how, they have to shoot them all, and every once in a while they get one that they just have to rebuild. And they'll start from the ground up looking at everything, and usually winds up being the most costly part is rechambering the barrel. This is across the board, whether it's, any custom maker, the problem is the interaction in the making or forming of the chamber into the barrel. You're trying to make a perfect part inside an imperfect part, and they don't play well together. And so when you make a chamber separate of the barrel, you don't have the barrel itself negatively influencing the process of making the chamber, and vice versa. We don't have the going through the chamber to try to cut throats into the barrel deep into the rifling, which is where you don't want to be. So for us, one of the things that I can say, very proudly, but to say that we worked really hard at this would be an understatement, is that our return rate has been 0. And one of the things that Bruce had said that surprised him with the system is not just the accuracy. We expected it to shoot, and we expected it to shoot the way that it does. But the fact that we were able to make them and repeat over and over and over again the same process and get the same results, removing that 1 in 10 or that 10-15% failure rate that's common across the industry or higher. And so that last missing piece that causes us issues when it comes to building a rifle, whether it's a $600 rifle or $6,000 rifle, everybody that's chambering a barrel traditionally still runs into this problem, and the failure rate is there. It's proven, it's documented. If they're honest, like I really appreciated this podcast, as well as the makers, to be honest and saying that, we test them because we get an anomaly, just won't shoot for whatever reason. Even though we've controlled all the tolerances of every part and piece and component, we pick the best. It's that last piece of actually cutting that chamber. The other exciting thing, I think, as we move towards 2024 here is the fact that the chamber is now something that you can purchase as a component. So think of a rifle building kit. But then it's also something that you can reuse and recycle. And so it's no longer a throwaway service to where you spend $200, $300, $400, $500 on a chamber job. If you want the world's best bench rest builder to chamber your rifle, you're on a 6-month to 1-year waiting list, and you're going to pay nearly $500 to have it done. And that's just for the chamber. Once you have it done, you've got a life expectancy of seconds, of shooting time as far as the barrel going down and the bullets going down the barrel and burning the barrel out, right? But 2,000-3,000 rounds later, you're back in line to get another rifle done, and it's not going to be with the same reamer. It's not going to be the same dimensions because it's going to be with a different reamer. It's going to be resharpened. It's going to be slightly different. The head space might be slightly different, 1 or 2 tenths to 1 or 2 thousandths. So you're almost starting from scratch every single time because you have to have that service. And so when I was thinking about this driving back from North Carolina, it was one of those things that just, it's in my heart, it just feels awesome that we've now taken that part out and said that, not only can you buy every working piece of the rifle now, so the rifle chamber, if you walked into our store and said, hey, I'd like to buy a rifle chamber, we have them for sale. We're probably the only people in the world that have rifle chambers for sale. It's pretty cool, right? Here's the other thing is they're reusable, right? So as long as you take care of them and don't damage them by dropping them on the floor or just inadvertently doing all kinds of damage to them through whatever, keeping them out in weather or letting them rust or whatever you might do to damage anything stainless or otherwise. But you can actually remove that chamber, purchase another barrel as a component, and put that chamber right back on the next barrel. And you have the same headspace, you have the same chamber dimensions. Everything's the way it was, brand new. So it's a system. It is the first true rifle system to where all the components play together, and every working piece of the rifle is now a standalone component. There is no service base to it. And every piece and part can be removed or added by the customer. The customer now has complete control of every working part and piece of the rifle, and then they can go back and they can change things. So it might sound silly. So we were talking with a customer from Texas the other day, and he's building a 6.5 PRC because he wants a long-range gun. And we were talking about, using a system and, bringing him in and doing some training with him. And I said, he's unsure about the 6.5 PRC. He's like, well, I think I don't want a 6.5 Creedmoor. I think I want more horsepower. I want a 6.5 PRC. And so you could tell he's on the fence, didn't know what to do because he was really unsure of how the 6.5 PRC long-term was going to be the cartridge form, right? Was it going to be accurate enough? Was it going to be too much recoil? Are the components available? And I said, I wouldn't sweat that at all because if you don't like it, we could just take the 6.5 PRC chamber off and put a 6.5 Creedmoor chamber on it. You can go and shoot it with the 6.5 Creed. Outside of changing the bolt face, it's really not that big of a deal. And there was a long pause on the other end of the phone like, oh, that's right, you can do that. So in my mind, we have made this to where, when we say about, we're America's Armory and, the home of the ace, we are a armory in the fact that we're a support system for the customers with the components. So think of us as the armor. You call up, here's what I need to get my rifle back in line again. Here's the parts and pieces that we have. We pull them, send them out. You're right back in the game again. In law enforcement, one of the things that I've learned, and you hear this common around the scenes as far as when you're talking about CERT teams and CERT team members is, if they have a rifle in service, who was it built by? How long is it? If they have to have anything reworked on that rifle, it's a massive amount of downtime to get that rifle back into service, which means it's out of service, which means you've lost part of your arsenal or a tool that you might actually need, right? But then there's always that question, is it going to be as good as it was when we first sent it out? So we got this rifle, and it's a great shooter, starting to get shot out. We're a little concerned about it. Now we got to send it in. When you get it back, it's a whole new rifle. You're almost starting from scratch and rolling the dice of whether or not you have a good one or not because you have the service base of the chamber. And the truth of the matter is, if you talk to a lot of people that do this for a living, is that they don't always pass muster when they're redone. So there's a failure rate with that. And now all of a sudden, not only was it out of service for 6 months and you pay for these services, but now it's not meeting your specs and demands. Where imagine the fact that, hey, we think the barrel's getting shot out. Literally with 1 day of training, we can train them to take the ace off, put a new barrel on it, put the ace back on, put the barreled system back on the action, and the rifle will shoot as if it was brand new, exactly the same. No different. Every single time. This has been our goal, and one of the facts that as we're rolling it out and going slow is making sure that we've got all the parts and pieces in play, making sure we're doing a great job. And it's one of those things that you just can't hurry it, and there's time involved and setting up all the processes and setting up all the equipment. But I will say that we work with the best for a reason. So you talk about, Bat Machine and Bruce and those guys, their minds are in another world that I can only hope to get into as far as their level of knowledge when it comes to tool and die manufacturing at super high precise levels, right? And so they're mentors as well as, I look up to them and try to strive to hopefully, make them proud as far as my abilities to hold and become a world-class machinist and do the things above and beyond what most people are capable of doing. And, we've been doing it up to this point, but we have so much left to learn. I think everybody does. Our goal in the end is to have what will be considered like a rifle kit system where the customer can call in, order their components. We can bed the receiver into stock if they would like, which I always recommend, especially with a lot of your chassis out there. But then we send it out. They pick out the trigger, install their trigger. They can come in and take a day's training with us. So some of the classes that we offer, which we'll talk about here in a minute, they can come in and spend a day with us, and we can go over the processes here, some of the tools that they'll need. So 2024 is going to be a big step forward with us. We're about 2 years ahead of schedule, actually, which we're really excited about. We purchased this new building here. The story was we were renegotiating our lease. Everything got sort of put weirdly on hold. A bank had purchased an entire complex with 39 businesses in it. One of them was ours. And basically, a week before Christmas, said, hey, y'all, you got 90 days to be somewhere else because we're going to make this whole facility our corporate offices. And so we got fast-tracked into a new building. Sometimes it's just a good thing, right? And force you outside your comfort zone. Now here we are, in a 10,000 square foot facility. We got machines setting on the floor. We're getting tooled up. Still with partner with Bat Machine. They're doing our ACE system there because of the level of machining that they have in their systems. We're going to start doing a lot more of the barrel work here and handle a lot of the other components. But we are about 2 years ahead of schedule where we wanted to be. Like our long-term goal was to stay where we were at for about another 2 years and then get our facility and then start taking some of the barrel work and doing it in-house a little bit easier because we can control some of the things. We're going to be talking about other components here briefly. So I'm just going to sidestep for 1 second and go backwards. We are vulnerable to components just like everybody else is. And like we've been working with several different barrel manufacturers, and Lothar Walther's always been on the radar. And one of the things I like about Lothar Walther is they're a German-based company, but they have their own foundries. Their steel is made to their specs. They don't buy on the open market. They have their own stress relief processes that were designed by engineers in Germany. There's a lot to be said about the quality of their barrels. And the fact that we're going to be buying them probably as 1-260 blanks and turning them and profiling them to the profiles that we need, and then be able to not only just do the barrel work, but do all of it. We can contour it to length, whatever size we need. We can actually flute some of them now without the worries of the flutes opening up the bull or the bolt bore raceway. So there's a lot that we're working on, and then we can custom design them. So we can do a lighter weight cut barreled, but then make a little bit beefier of a muzzle, which is where you always have the tendency of a muzzle opening up if you cut them too thin. And then you just don't have enough meat to put suppressors on. So we can do some custom work as far as in-house design to have a super lightweight, great accurate barrel. We can cut flutes to reduce weight and have all the rigidity of carbon, but about at half the cost, and actually have a beautiful looking, rifle barrel, and even go as far as to potentially flute them. So that's what we're sort of working on behind the scenes now over the next probably 60 days to 90 days till this will be up and working. There's a lot that we're still, putting and trying to make sure that we always stay with the best quality products. We always stay with the best quality components, and we offer those to the customers here. But our end goal in 2024 is to have a store up as a component-based store where you can log on just like any store, and you can type in there, hey, I want to buy a barrel, I want to buy this, I want to buy that, and I want this chamber. And you're actually going to get all of these individual components. If you want us to put the ACE on for you, we can. If you want to teach you how to do it, we can. But that's always our end goal, is to be a service-based system here and support the customers rather than the custom rifle-based system. One of the things I always found with the custom rifles is that they always pin you in a bad way. So not to sound anything in a condescending way or a business model way, but I would say that the future is components based. And I would say that the one thing about custom rifles that's hidden is, I always say that I find that custom rifles a lot of times work off of brands and branding, and that's not a bad thing, right? You build a reputation up and you do that. But when you buy a custom rifle, you don't get to see the breakdown of the individual cost of the components, nor do you get to see what you're really paying for or overpaying for. So one of the things with the custom rifle, because you only get to see the actual price, is you don't get to see, an individual breakdown of what this rifle is actually costing you. And it's a way for them that if they exposed it, if they said, here, we're charging $2,800 labor, most people would gasp at that. And I don't want to say that in a bad way, because there's a lot of great builders out there, but I think when you offer a rifle in a components-based system, there's always this transparency as to what you're paying for everything. And I think when you look at the bottom line as looking at a components-based rifle, you see the transparency of the rifle and all of its components. And then when you look at that price compared to a complete custom rifle, you get to see the cost difference. And it's significant. And one of the things I don't want to do is, I always find that there's a very small portion in the United States. It's just like anything else. When you start talking about rifles that are in that $5,000 and $6,000 price range, they're really awesome. And there's a little bit of, a little pride in it. It's like you get something really nice and something special. But are you really getting that value for your money? And one of the things that I found is, even if you took like the top 3 custom rifle manufacturers, I would say, and you look at the numbers that they put out, collectively, they might build, 1,000 to 2,000 rifles a year amongst the top 3 or 5, all combined. And so that tells you on the millions and millions of buyers out there and the millions and millions of hunters that they're really squabbling over the top, one or two tenths of a percent. 98.5 or 98.7% of your buyers out there look at a rifle as a tool, and at some point they cry uncle and they say, I don't know if I see the value in that. Like, what am I getting in return? Is it something more, or is it just a brand thing? And one of the things that we wanted to always stay away from is I never wanted to be a rifle manufacturer per se. I always wanted to take the manufacturers on and say that, we want to grow, and we want to build thousands and thousands and thousands of these rifle kits and support the components. But I didn't want to be a completed rifle. The networking that you go through of having the rifles put on the shelf, the excise tax and manufacturing licenses, all these other things get involved, which again start adding even more to the rifle. And it really just muddies up the waters, the complexity of trying to get a great product to the customer. And so I find the simplest way is, staying with the direct-to-customer market. So we sell directly to the customers. Our service and our sales team is the people that you talk to. We don't have somebody over the counter at a local mom-and-pop gun store trying to explain the system and how to tighten stuff up and giving you their thoughts and inputs of how a torque wrench works, or how it's sort of funny how that works. But we don't want anyone else speaking on behalf of or teaching anything. And we don't want somebody else, saying, hey, we'll buy it for this and we'll double it and we'll sell it for that. We always find that when you do direct to components to the customers, you can offer them a better value as well, because we don't have to pay a middleman. We were able to send that savings forwards to the customer, and then we're also able to offer that direct support as well. And so that's one of our other goals for 2024 is to do just that. Now, in our classes, just to give you a quick update, our classes for 2024, we always announce them in August for the next year because a lot of people have to take time off of work. And then we always offer what we call our early bird registration or discount. So if you sign up for one of our long-range shooting schools or the practical tactical or some of the newer classes that we offer, if you sign up prior to 2024, if you sign up before December 31st of this year, it is our way of saying thanks. We give you $50 off the class as well. So just to let you know, all of our classes for 2024 are live and posted. They were posted up last night. They include our long-range shooting school. We're only going to offer 11 classes next year, and for the first time, we're going to allow spotters to come through. So you can have an observer come and attend the class with you and not necessarily be a shooter. So if you have someone that you would like to bring, we are going to allow them to register for the class and allow them to participate. They won't be shooting, they'll be observers, but it allows them to pull up a seat in the class and take the class with you, right? And so we're going to allow that for our long-range shooting school. We're also going to allow that for our ballistics class, as well as the introductory to long-range shooting. Now, something special we did for 2024 is we have 3 of them posted, and we have, I think, one or two posted yet for this year. Is we're going to do an introductory to long-range shooting. It's a one-day class where we're going to go over some safety and fundamentals in the morning, and then have a nice late breakfast, early lunch, and then we're going to take you to the range in the afternoon. And really for new shooters, I'm thinking young shooters, young kids, husband, wives, gives them a chance to just get a taste of what it's like to do what we do. They get a chance to actually shoot some rifles and enjoy themselves, right? And expose them to the art and love of long-range shooting. I mean, that's what's passionate about. That's what drives us all the time, is watching a new shooter hit a piece of steel at 1,000 yards and this smile just magically appear from ear to ear and their eyes get really big. And you can tell that the hook is set. I mean, this is what we love to do and we love to share it. So those classes are going to be open to observers. And then, of course, we can have the new shooters class where you can bring a new shooter and you can come as an observer, not necessarily a participant, and sort of help and guide and be part of the experience with them and be there with them, even though you don't necessarily have to take the class. So we're excited about that. The other thing is that we have a rifle building class and seminar up and posted where you can come in, and it's going to be from probably, we're thinking like 8 to 2:30 or 9 to 2:30. It's not quite a full day, but you're going to come in. We're going to go over the assembly of the rifle, the parts and components, and we're actually going to build a rifle in the class with the students and show them how all the tools operate. give a little brief description on the bedding and things to look for when we bed rifles and why we bed, and do a Q&A. And we're also going to talk about fundamentals and ballistics as well. I mean, it's what we do, so we're going to take a little bit of time and talk about, hey, when you're setting your rifle up at home, here's some things you want to focus on if you've not been through our shooting school. Here's some tools that you're going to need. Here's some equipment that you want to pay attention to, and really just give a all-rounded 5-6 hour, best we can to everything on the components and that they'll need and tools and processes. We're actually going to build a complete rifle in the class and then go over some of the advanced stuff, like how do we put optics on, how do we zero them, how do we bore sight them, talk about fundamentals when you get it to the range and fitting the rifle properly, just all the good stuff. And so we've announced a couple classes this winter as well as in the spring, and you're more than welcome to sign up for those. They're $189, so I think they're reasonably priced, and they include lunch, and you get to spend a day with us here. We're holding those on Saturdays. The last thing I want to touch base on is the Practical Tactical Shooters Challenge. We just announced one for October. So on the Practical Tactical, what we're going to do is we're going to break it down into 2 days in the spring and 2 days in the fall. And each shooter is going to get a day. And so we can really spend a full day with you having all kinds of fun, shooting all kinds of targets. And we can get a lot of shooters through and get a chance to enjoy the facility, which I think is going to be really awesome as well. So if you have any questions or if you would like to reach out to us, you'll see everything transforming here over the next probably 3 to 4 months. Our goal sort of January 1st is to have our new store launched. And for those who would like to come in and join us early for one of the rifle building classes, you're more than welcome to register. All of those are active online as well. Classes and slots are limited to 10. But, feel free to reach out to us. The other thing we're going to do as well is to support this is we're going to have a lot of online videos and instructional videos. They aren't going to be any fees attached. They're all going to be informational, really just for the customers to refer to and go back to. They're going to happen after we finish recording our online long-range shooting school. Now, coming back to the online long-range shooting school real quick, it is active. We have, I think, well over 13 hours of content. We have about every other week we're putting a video up because of the new machines that we're putting in and all the training that we're having to go through. It's really biting into some of our video time. This should all be under control here in about another 4 weeks. We should be back to a weekly basis. So for everybody signed up for the online long-range shooting school, really appreciate your patience. And we should have a new video coming out this week. And we're going to try to be every other week just for the next probably 4 or 6 weeks, and then back to a normal rotation to finish the class by the end of the year. We basically have our entire long-range shooting school posted online that you can enjoy from the convenience and comfort of your own home. And we've had lots of clients attending and really getting a lot from it, which keeps us excited because the content's coming across well. They're learning a lot. And that part's important. So we got to be able to put the content out there, but we got to put it out in a way that makes sense that the customers or the listeners or the subscribers can actually use. If you want to learn more about our online school, you can stop over to wolfprecision.net, or you can look over at Patreon and look at Wolf Precision. The last thing I want to say thank you is to Krieger Barrels. They're one of our sponsors of the show here. They make fine cut rifle barrels. They are a family owned and operated business in the great state of Wisconsin. And they have a new program called Krieger Direct, where you can log on and purchase your barrel and have it in as little as 2 to 3 business days, which we find is really important. So if you want a barrel and you want the best and you need it now, you can stop over to KriegerDirect.com or KriegerBarrels.com today. All right, thank you everybody for taking the time to join us on the podcast. So I guess the answer to the age-old question is a chamber a verb or a noun? And I would say after 125 years of it being a verb, it is a noun. You can now purchase a rifle chamber. And we are excited to bring that to market, and we are excited to offer that to the customers for so many different reasons that we talked about. So if you want to learn more about our system, you can stop over to wolfprecision.net. And then if you have any questions, of course, please feel free to give us a call here anytime. And you're more than welcome to stop by our facility as we get it up and running here in Johnstown, Pennsylvania. So thank you, everybody, for taking the time to listening to the podcast. And if you like this show and you like the content, you like to share it, we really appreciate that. If you want to leave a nice comment, we appreciate that as well. If you like the show and you like to support, you can stop over to Patreon. You can become a Wolfpack member, and you can basically, for $3 a month, support the show. We always say thanks and really appreciate that too. So thank you, everybody, for taking the time to join us here. We really appreciate it. My name is Jamie Dotson. I'm your host, and you're listening to the Long Range Shooting and Custom Rifle Building Podcast.